Welcome to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast, where you can learn and be inspired by real-world examples of how technology is transforming businesses and reshaping industries in a language everyone can understand. Here is your host, Neil C. Hughes.
Welcome back to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast. Now, today I come with somewhat of a cybersecurity warning. For example, did you know that endpoint detection and response, or EDR for those in the know, are no longer enough to protect organisations against cyber attacks on their own? So the big question is, how can a business better protect itself against zero-day exploits? And a quick look online, if you do a search on whatever search engine takes your fancy, will tell you that AI or even deep learning will dramatically help the situation. But let's be honest, there are so many overhyped buzzwords out there. What does all that mean in a business context? And how does it actually help businesses become better protected? Well, today I want to learn more about why prevention-first solutions will be the next layer in an organisation's security stack, and also try to demystify some of the tech and the solutions that are available out there. Which means I'm going to ask you to buckle up and hold on tight, because I want to beam your ears all the way stateside so you can join me and Chuck Everty from Deep Instinct on the podcast, where we're going to be talking about how deep learning, which is a subset of AI, will actually help shift an organisation's mindset from merely detecting and responding to attacks to predicting and preventing. So a massive warm welcome to the show. Can you tell the listeners a little about who you are and what you do?
Chuck Everett. I'm with Deep Instinct currently, and I'm the Director of Cybersecurity Advocacy here. My job is one of education, collaboration, and basically talking to people about cybersecurity, what the future holds, current threats, what's going on out there, and helping people, secure their environments. I've been in IT security for over 25 years. So I've been around the block a bit, been everywhere from, a deputy CISO running a 60-person SOC for the United States banking industry, work with 3-letter government agencies throughout the world, been in the vendor space, and now currently, as I said, I'm with Deep Instinct, which I've been here 5 years, which is quite a long time, but it's because of the product that we use.
Now, a question I've got to ask is, how did you get here? What is your origin story? Because I'm always curious on where you got so interested in technology and cybersecurity. How both of those worlds collided? Was there anything that lit the spark in you to put you on this path?
I think I started off, actually I had a passion for police work. I had been involved with Police Explorers, Police Cadets, which is a program here in the U.S., growing up from there. And actually I was going to college to be a police officer. At that time, I was messing around with the old dial-up BBS boards and doing some maybe a little bit of nefarious things here and there, and got going, with the college I was in. And I actually ended up being with residential networking, worked my way up there, and really realized, crime and police is a passion. I had been involved with it, but this technology stuff, absolutely loved it. And just kind of it grew from there. As I said, working in the college, then going on to working for Kraft Foods, Philip Morris in the manufacturing side, got into the security side of it from there, separating manufacturing networks from office networks, got into security, got into compliance, went into the financial space. It just kind of, worked my way up. Big break was being the lead security architect for the state of Wisconsin, putting in the largest network, IP network there, segmenting out the differences between state police stations, 911 centers, and elementary schools and high schools, those type of things. So just kind of worked it way up, progressed. And then I got kind of startup fever. I went over to Carbon Black. I worked with them for 4 years, kind of got in early there, left right before IPO. Now I'm with Deep Instinct. So definitely enjoying the security ride. It's, kind of the future, the way we're going.
So present day, that path led you to Deep Instinct. And there'll be a lot of people listening, hearing about you guys for the very first time. So can you tell the listeners a bit more about what Deep Instinct is, the kind of problems you solve for businesses, and also what makes you a little bit different and stand out in that increasingly crowded market?
Oh, absolutely. And, I get in trouble for saying this, but the market is saturated with security products, security vendors, and everybody, raising their hand, screaming, hey, we're the best out there. We're the next flavor. We're the next thing. And credibility is, it doesn't make a difference who I work for. I'm a security guy at heart. And the reason I'm at Deep Instinct is because the product that they have here, and I've been here, since day one. I wasn't sold on the product originally. Just a quick story here. I was actually cornered by Guy Caspi, our CEO at Black Hat 5 years ago. And I was, asked to speak to this, Israeli startup company. I really wasn't interested. I was with Carbon Black. And I'm like, you know what? I'm happy with this. End up meeting with him. I didn't believe what he was saying. The claims that he was saying that this product can do. Signed an NDA, got my hands on it. I played with it for 2 weeks, tore it apart, and needs to say I'm still here. Deep Instinct, what it is it's a deep learning platform. Deep learning is an advanced form of AI. Everybody's using AI out there. They're using machine learning. Deep learning is the next evolution of that. And what Deep Instinct has done is taken and built a framework from the ground up specifically for cybersecurity, meaning this isn't an off-the-shelf deep learning program like Google or IBM, those others use, facial recognition, or Tesla for their self-driving cars. This was built specifically for cybersecurity, meaning that basically it's trained on over 250 different samples, and deep learning actually mimics the human brain. It actually creates interconnectivity and able to think extremely faster. It's not a flow chart like machine learning, where basically if this happens, you do this, and or okay, this literally thinks like that. So it's able to make decisions if something's malicious or not by looking at an entire file within 20 milliseconds and saying, you know what, that's malicious, even if it's never ever seen it before. And that's the thing is, deep learning is able to take 0 days. And I've personally been testing IOC's major threats that have come out in the industry over the past year and test them against our product. And I've taken, stuff that's brand new, 0 day, just came out, got it directly off the dark web, test against our product with one of our brains or algorithms that's over 6 months old, and we still prevent it. And so every major IOC that comes out, hits the media, I test it, come to find out we would have prevented it. And that's, that's a big, bold claim, which a lot of people, have hard to swallow. Deep learning brings so much new to the table, and other technologies are starting to adapt it, but they're years behind. We've been doing it since day one, building it out, and our platform is huge. And to the point of where we're being picked up by some of the largest, Fortune 100 companies out there. They're realizing, hey, this is the next generation. This is the direction we need to go. And the cost savings, the cost savings of knocking down alerts, knocking down false positives. There's a huge gap right now in cybersecurity professionals. There's 500,000 positions open in the US, estimated 6 million globally. How do you fill those positions? Everybody's overworked. They can't get enough out there. By putting a product like us in place, we're able to save those security, SOCs and the other groups 30, 40% of their employees' time is now able to be rededicated to doing compliance management, doing vulnerability scans, doing other critical stuff instead of chasing false positives or alerts. And that's where Deep Instinct really makes a difference here. So we prevent things from getting in. Nobody else can stop. And that's the key thing right there. And that's why, and I said I've been here for 5 years.
And to many organizations and leaders listening to us today, endpoint detection and response, or EDR, is often seen as the latest innovation in cybersecurity and as the tool to keep their network safe. However, with attacks now only needing 60 seconds after executing to cause significant damage to an organization's network, there is an increasing argument that EDR solutions actually give organizations a false sense of security. But can you expand on this and what you're seeing out there?
Absolutely. Even myself, over the years, it's been pounded into our heads as security professionals that, hey, you have to have that assume breach mentality, which you have to have that. But basically, hey, it's going to happen. So the next best thing I can do is I can just detect it and respond to it. And that's where EDR kind of does that DVR type capabilities. Everything feeds into that and gives you those alerts of, hey, this is what's happening. This is the direction, this is what we saw. The problem is it's post-execution. It has to get into your environment. And now we're seeing more and more threat actors being stealthy. They're getting into environments. They're not triggering the EDR solutions. And therefore, they're in there for an extended period of time. And with that, it gives the threat actors to expand more, pull more data off the systems for exfiltration. So EDR just isn't that. It's not preventing it. It's allowing you to respond to it after the fact. What Deep Instinct is coming in and saying, you know what, we can prevent it from the on-go. Because a lot of times, ransomware is the last thing that gets dropped in. The first thing is spyware. It's a dropper. Those type of things are what comes in, and then that enables them to drop in the ransomware and the other, the miners and the other worms to go through and laterally move around. Why have this spread throughout your network and then eventually tell you about it? Stop it at the get-go. And that's where, EDR is failing now, is because it's allowing them to get through. And the thing is a lot of these threat actors are actually using adversarial AI, meaning that they've already mapped out of how these machine learning algorithms work, and they know how to bypass it. They know, hey, you know what? If I inject in and I let this sit for a couple extra seconds in between each task, I know I'm not going to trigger your EDR solution. It allows them to get in deeper. It's predictable. And that's why using an advanced AI solution like Deep Instinct using deep learning is that next generation to kind of shore up that gap between EDR. Because why, wait for an attack to respond to it?
And I think we've got to back up there, because I suspect we'll have a lot of people listening all over the world. We've set off a few alarm bells there because they thought EDR was the be-all and end-all of their security solution. So is there anything else you can add on to that? Just why EDR solutions are not secure enough to stop attacks, especially because of that low dwell time? Is there anything else just to strengthen that case that you'd like to share?
I think the main thing there is, a lot of people have come to depend on EDR, and EDR, other security vendors out there over the years, they've added more modules to it. They've added more capabilities. They've added rollback capabilities, saying, hey, you know what? Hey, we detect this, we can roll back. Well, tearing apart the latest threats over the past year, I can say over 70% of the major ransomware attacks, as well as some of the other droppers, TrickBot and Motet, those type of things. One of the first things it does is say, hey, what are you running? Let me go after those Microsoft shadow copies. Let me go after, you're running another competing product. And let me go after, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to encrypt those backups, or I'm going to trigger it where it looks like they're happening, but they're actually not. It disables the rollback capability. So the problem is EDR said, you know what? Hey, we can do prevention. Well, they're doing prevention, again, post-execution. Why let something execute, get it out there? Because, as you said, it takes 60 seconds. In some cases, we're seeing within 15 seconds that crypto worms are being set out for lateral movement. They're moving that fast. And then what they're doing is they're kind of sitting there. They'll take over that initial patient zero, elevate permissions, those type of things. Sometimes that triggers. Well, the problem is there's so many alerts coming into modern day EDR systems or SIMs that security staff can't keep up with it. And that's, alert fatigue. It's a real thing. We're seeing it sometimes organizations I go and I talk to, they're getting 70,000 alerts a day. One major corporation I was talking to, over 500,000 alerts per week. How can they keep up with it? Their staff can't keep up with it. Therefore, they're letting things through. And a lot of times it's a needle in a haystack. You'll get maybe 5 alerts that are critical, but if they're buried in thousands of other alerts, they're too busy looking through that, they're going to miss it. And that's the problem with EDR. It really struggles right now of it's information overload. It's like, let me capture as much information I can from firewalls, from systems, from all these different access points, brings it in. The problem is you still need to have it. And a lot of times EDRs, said these EDR vendors like, you know what, we can fix that for you. You now need to buy advanced services from us. We'll help you filter through that. Or you need to buy this next thing. So it's almost becoming, they're constantly tagging on more and more costs to be able to manage this great amount of information without getting to the root cause. The root cause is preventing it from even getting the system, prevent those alerts. If you can stop that initial dropper from coming in, putting that first thing there, you'll kill 10,000 alerts without even getting them. That's your cost savings. You'll get those type of things there.
Just listening to you there, I was getting flashbacks of my own IT past and that alert fatigue that you talked about there. It is so real in every organization. And I suppose if anything good can come out of this is we're now adopting a more proactive approach to security rather than a reactive approach where we wait for something to go wrong and then act. But presumably then, do you think prevention first solutions will be that next layer in an organization's security stack as we continue to evolve and embrace that proactive approach?
I'll answer this as a security professional, not somebody that worked for Deep Instinct. And quite honestly, absolutely. We have to step back and start looking at that prevention. And you have to have, that security in layers, security in depth. You need to have multiple areas where you can stop or prevent this. And getting products in that can stop it at that layer gives you more time to react. You can see where it's coming from. So many of the clients and CISOs and CIOs I talk to out there, they're amazed by basically getting a good high fidelity alert allows their incident responders, their people to respond to the area where it comes from. So an alert pops up from Deep Instinct saying, hey, we prevented this. They can go back and say, you know what, using EDR or using SIM is still a layer. You still have that in place, but they're able now to go back and focus. Where did this come from? Oh, wait, okay, we forgot to patch a server. It came in through Log4j. Or wait a minute, we moved to Microsoft 360, but we left our old Exchange server up and we didn't patch it. Those type of things, you're able to see it. Or you can see, you know what? Hey, wait a minute, George left RDP open on one of our web servers. You can see that capability. So we prevent it, but you need to have the other tools in place to be able to investigate and go back and look for that. So it's definitely still a layered approach, but you need to get that prevention there. And you need to get what I call high fidelity alerts to come into place to be able to allow your threat hunters to react, proactively and to see where it's coming from, those type of things. But you can also see, you can also do your own test, your own red teaming. Again, you're not going to be inundated with all these different threats and these different alerts coming in. You're absolutely right. Alert fatigue is real. We all feel it. And we're seeing right now the turnover rate in security professionals is because they're getting burnt out and they're going someplace else with the promise of greener pastures. Coming to find out it's not there. Problem is they're taking that subject matter knowledge, expertise with them of environments. Environments then in these organizations are even more at risk because they're losing their security professionals on a regular basis. And we're seeing even CISOs. A lot of times CISOs, they're only lasting, 12 to 24 months in a position before they go on someplace else. So they go in, spend their political capital of getting a solution in place, then they walk out the door and the subject matter experts a lot of times leave with them. And so we're constantly churning. So you have to be up to date with your security solutions and staying in front of it, keeping your people educated, keeping them certified, and understanding of your infrastructure and documentation and communication. I mean, basic security hygiene.
And you mentioned earlier in the podcast about deep learning and how it is a subset of AI. And I think a lot of this technology is intriguing to business leaders. And on this podcast, I always try and demystify it somewhat and help advise and educate business leaders on how technology such as deep learning and AI are actually solving real business problems. So with that in mind, can you explain how it is actually shifting an organization's mindset from detecting and responding to cyber attacks to actually predicting and preventing them, like we've been talking about for the last few minutes, just to demystify that technology and break down some of them barriers?
Yeah. The term AI has been hyper utilized in the security realm for the past 7 years, and they've adapted. Machine learning. Machine learning is what a lot of times we're referring to as AI, and AI is such a broad term where everybody kind of utilizes it and they throw it around. And then a lot of organizations, a lot of vendors are creating their own terminology. Deep machine learning. Such things don't exist, and it's all marketing ploy to kind of capture that next thing because. Saying that they use AI is like, well, everybody uses AI. My coffee maker uses AI, that type of stuff. So it's like, okay, when they hear us talk about deep learning and the next subset of AI, a lot of folks, kind of glaze over. Okay, here we go again, another marketing ploy, But understanding that deep learning is a fundamental shift in AI. It is the next advance. And literally, what I mentioned earlier, it's mimicking the human brain. Think of it this way. If you take pictures of dogs and cats, put that through a machine learning algorithm, it's not going to get it right. It's going to be about a 30% failure rate on it because it can't tell the difference because they're both fuzzy. They have 2 eyes, 2 ears, those type of things. Shape of the face, you can take a pug and it looks like a cat or vice versa. But yet, if you ask any 2-year-old, they're going to point and say doggy or kitty instantaneously. They know the difference. And that's kind of the difference between deep learning. Deep learning, you run that through there, they're able to distinguish that difference instantaneously within milliseconds. And that's, kind of that subset because it literally connects. There's multiple different layers, multiple different neurons connecting between them, and it's self-learning. And to the point of where, with Deep Instinct, we've been doing this for over 7 years now. Our algorithms have been building up and getting smarter over the time to the point of where, as I said, I've taken IOCs, indicators of compromise from the media, stuff that's brand new 0 day. You get announced, hey, this company just got hit. I grab that, I run it through, and I'll run it through one of our, what we call our brain or our algorithm. And come to find out, we would have prevented it with something, that was 9 months old, because it's that intelligence, because we're constantly scraping, the dark web, working with other organizations, and we're sharing information. And then we put that into our algorithm and we learn from it. And it learns. And the thing is, you could fundamentally shift the code and get away from that, and we'd still detect, because you know what? We could tell that this is malicious code buried inside of this. Unlike machine learning, if you get away from it too much, you have to sit down, and there's a manual process where literally people have to sit there, manually label it, feed it in, and basically retrain their algorithms of how to learn it. So that's the difference between machine learning. Machine learning, I've actually charted it out to the point of where it takes a lot of these other companies anywhere from 2 weeks to 4 weeks to recover and retrain to get out these new subsets of data to be able to protect against something new. With our technology, it's already there. It already knows, it's already learned. It almost predicts in a sense. So if something new comes out and it finds out how to bypass these machine learning, it takes weeks, if not a month or more, for them to recover from it. There hasn't been a case yet. And that's where, Deep Instinct, they put their money where their mouth is. There's a $3 million ransomware warranty. We've had that over a year now. None of our clients have ever had to take us up on it, because we've protected them. All the greatest threats and the vulnerabilities coming out there, we protect them. We also have a false positive guarantee, meaning that our false positive rate is less than 1%. There's a money back guarantee. Nobody else in the industry is doing that. It's because this technology is so advanced. It gives us the capabilities to do that. And this isn't marketing. This is true life science.
And for anybody listening anywhere in the world and receive that wake-up call from listening to our conversation today that maybe their EDR solution is just not enough and they need something more, to leave them with a valuable takeaway, how can those organizations better start preventing cyber attacks and protecting themselves? Is there anything you'd leave listeners with on there?
The main thing is just don't be content with what you have now. In 2021 or 2020 with the pandemic, we saw quite a few organizations shifting to the cloud. They're going from their data center, their four-wall, their fortress in a sense, migrating to the cloud. And they're assuming that these cloud service providers are giving them the same level of protection they had internally. Be diligent. Make sure your security controls are in place across your entire platforms, making sure that you're monitoring your entire environment. Security in depth, like I said, there isn't just one thing, but go back, look at prevention. Prevention is possible with a product like Deep Instinct, and add that to your security stack. Go back to that again. These antiquated, hey, you know what? Replacing security products is painful. I get it. I understand it. I've been there. So many people don't want to look at it, but get away from these legacy products that do not work. Put them head to head with another product like Deep Instinct, and see what the differences of these modern cutting edge, advanced AI products can do for you out there, and what you can learn from it and what you can prevent. Don't assume a breach mentality. Don't sit back and say, you know what, I'm going to get hit with it. Like just, hit me with it and I'll recover and I'll do it from there. Because I have insurance, I have things like that. The total cost of insurance, what we're seeing out there, insurance is not enough. Why come back and have to spend 6 weeks cleaning up, having the loss of productivity, having the reputation damage, when you can prevent it? And that's where a lot of boards and CEOs are realizing, you know what, we got to look at this differently, because we can't take the hit originally. We've seen it in too many other companies. Like, CNN put out there, 22% of small medium businesses that are hit with ransomware go under. Why chance it? There are technologies out there like Deep Instinct that can prevent it. Adopt it, look at it, get rid of your old legacy stuff. Hey, I've been running this for 10 years. I'm good enough for now. There's no such thing as good enough anymore.
And I'm conscious we have delivered a lot of warnings, talked about the risks, etc., and what people need to be doing differently. But what is it that makes you hopeful about the future and what this proactive approach to security will bring?
I think the one thing that I'm really seeing right now is that the public and private sectors are starting to work together. We're seeing it where governments are working with the private sector. Us in the private sector, a lot of times, we have threat intelligence that governments don't get, and vice versa. We're sharing that information now. And I think that's a key thing there, is where we're able to, in the future, it's no longer all these little silos and everybody protecting their own thing. We're working together. The threat actors, they're getting more sophisticated. They're evolving at a faster rate. We have to keep up with that. We're constantly reacting to what they're doing. We're starting to take that step to get in front of them and block them. Because as soon as we block them, they move on to a different avenue. The problem is they're always going to take the avenue that has least resistance, and they can make the most money. If you start making it as difficult as possible for them, they're going to move on to someplace else. And that's the key thing right there, is that we're making a difference. We have a long ways to go, but we're getting there.
Well, I cannot thank you enough for sharing your insights with myself and everyone listening today. But before I let you go, I'm going to ask you to share one other thing too, and that is maybe it's a song, movie, or book, or anything that has inspired or helped you throughout your career. Can you share your choice and the story behind it? And we'll leave everyone listening on an inspirational note. Is there anything you can think of there?
Oh boy, you put me on the spot there. I had to think about that for a second. I'm an 80s child in a sense. I said I'm Gen X, and for some reason, Top Gun keeps, the movie Top Gun keeps on coming to mind. It's like, you can break the rules, and kind of that was the thing too. Growing up, messing, as I mentioned, messing around with BBSs and doing some stuff, and I don't want to say hacking for sense, but getting into things and doing things you shouldn't have been doing, even though I was involved in law enforcement at the time. If you're breaking the rules, and a lot of times you're breaking the rules for a good reason, or those type, you're stretching it, but you can come back from that and you get life, lessons learned. And that's, I think, a big one there. Is just, it was kind of a driving force of, I enjoyed the movie, but on top of it, it's, realizing you can kind of come back and, if you do follow the rules and your rules engagement and what you're supposed to do, you're going to come out on the head at the end. If you're constantly breaking the rules and creating waves, not only do you get, your leadership mad at you, but also too, it shows that you're a loose cannon. And by, conforming, coming back in again, you're able to, show that you're worth, you can recover from that. So I guess, that's.
I feel like bursting into Danger Zone by Kenny Loggins now.
Exactly. Yes, exactly.
And for anyone listening that just wants to find out more information about Deep Instinct, where's the best way of finding you online, contacting your team, etc.? What's the best starting point?
Yep. We have a full website, completely redesigned recently, deepinstinct.com. But also, you always feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn. I love talking cybersecurity. I love answering questions. So, feel free to reach out anytime.
Well, I love chatting with you today, especially about how this subset of AI will shift an organization's mindset from detecting and responding to cyber attacks to actually predicting and preventing them. Incredibly powerful stuff. But even more than that, we've got your personal origin story and, of course, Top Gun and Kenny Loggins' Danger Zone. We covered so much today, but thank you so much for taking the time to share that with me.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
With attackers now looking to cause as much damage as possible, but in the shortest time possible, security teams can no longer simply just react to a cyber attack, but they must start preventing them altogether. So I generally hope that you learned something today about how you can start preventing cyber attacks and better protect yourselves or your organisation. And obviously, Chuck came on the podcast today and talked about everything from his point of view and what he's seeing with 5 years at Deep Instinct. But I'm conscious there will be other people from other solutions and using different technologies. And I want to hear all stories and get them on this podcast so we can then share them all. And then each business will find something that will meet their unique requirements, because there is no such thing as a one size fits all out there. And equally, if there's anything good that you find out there, or anything you're a little bit guarded about or cautious about, whatever it is, please, I want to hear your stories. So email me, techblogwriter@outlook.com, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn at Neil C. Hughes, and my website, if you'd like to work with me, is techblogwriter.co.uk. So I hope you learned as much as I did today about deep learning, and also about how EDR solutions are not enough to stop cyber attacks. But I'll invite you to join me again tomorrow. We'll tackle a completely different topic about how technology is helping to transform our life, our work, our world, and everything in between. So thank you for listening, and until next time, don't be a stranger.
Thank you for listening to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast with Neil C. Hughes. Remember, technology works best when it brings people together.